Planning board meeting for January 5th, 2021. This is being conducted via Zoom pursuant to the governor's order. We are recording this. If anybody else is recording it, that's fine. You just need to let us know.
I am Chris Rooney.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. So we will start with 7 o'clock town planners report. Alan?
Good evening, everybody. Over the past couple weeks, we've had a lot of inquiry into the Griffin Land Trust, 686 College Highway. It's 91 acres. And they haven't divulged what they're going to be doing, but it's probably going to be very similar to what was proposed before, a large commercial use. And we're having a meeting on January 20th, which is called a kickoff meeting. And then we'll find out more of information. They're trying to keep everything quiet for right now until they've got everything in order. Also, I've had an individual interested in a 2 to 5 acre parcel in for the marijuana grow, and he's been in touch with a gentleman on Hudson Drive as well as College Highway, because it seems like those two projects have stalled, and in most instances it costs a lot more than they probably anticipated. But this gentleman, he calls me daily looking at other parcels. You know, he knows it has to be within the proper zone. Also, there's a gentleman who's interested in land on Klein Road. There's 3 parcels down towards the low point where the brook is. He's interested in buying all 3 parcels and combining and making it one large gentleman farm. He's been working at that for quite some time also. And then also we've been reviewing the balloon pictures, the latest ones with the yellow balloon. And all of that should be online with the town for all those interested people to look at. And that's it.
Okay. All right. Hold on one second. All right. So 7:05 public comment. Is there anybody who has anything for the planning board tonight that is not on the agenda? All right. Did we have something for 7:10, Alan? Or no, it went off?
No, we didn't. We left that open because there's a couple other A&Rs that are in the works, and
Okay.
they didn't get their plans in on time to meet the deadline.
Okay. All right. So let's just so we can make it to 7:15 and start it around that time. We do need to start talking about getting some stuff on the calendar now that this is winding down. We have at least those 2 bylaw issues to be addressed, one being the sign bylaw and the other being the solar bylaw, and whether that will be changed in any way. Anybody have thoughts on, I mean, probably doesn't make sense to do both of them at the same time necessarily. I don't know what else is coming in, so I like to keep it a little bit open. But if anybody have a preference as to setting one down versus the other?
I think it would be smart to do the solar first. Just
Okay. Dick, were you saying something?
Situation with the sign bylaw, what are we doing with that?
So the sign bylaw was, I mean, we could do more if we wanted to, but the precipitating issue was the electronic signs, and talking about a couple of things. One being whether agricultural properties should be allowed to have electronic signs when they currently aren't right now. And the other being the sort of requirements for electronic signs as far as, what's in the bylaw as far as how often you can change them and what colors or what brightness or whatever whatever the criteria are in the bylaw. Whether to alter those in any way, shape, or form. I mean, right now it can be changed, I think, every hour, which was my understanding, primarily to allow gas stations to, change their signs, and they needed it hourly. So we can decide whether to adjust that. Those were the issues, at least, that led to it. We could certainly talk more about it if there's other issues within the bylaw that we want to address.
The one's gonna be easier than the other. We get one done, then work on the other one.
At least initially, just so I can kind of see what else is coming in. I don't want to, put both of them on there and then have, a bunch of other stuff that we have to deal with come in and we don't really have room for it. And we're doing lengthy meetings, especially after, we've been doing these. It's probably worth having a normal length meeting once or twice. So,
I
Also
was-
had the short-term rental thing too.
Yeah,
and but that's more, and that's on me. I've been meaning to try to get that together and just haven't had the time. That's more setting up a subcommittee and then letting that subcommittee do their thing. I'm hoping at the next meeting that we can get that set up.
Because the town, we just talked about it the other night at the selectmen's meeting. We are tracking for a normal election town meeting cycle in May this year. So if you're going to have zoning bylaws or amendments, you're on the clock. Really, it's already January 5th with, a May town meeting.
Okay. All right. What do you mean? Just by timing, right? Not necessarily held normally, but timing normally.
Oh, I don't think there's any chance of it being held normally, but
Right.
it's going to probably be, outdoors at the high school again. But the timing of it is going to be within past practice.
Okay.
Michael, could I bring up something else that I just remembered?
Yep.
We received our budget package and it's due by January 22nd. Is there anything that we should add to that for the select board to look at?
I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Basically, it's our operating budget. And then in the past, we've always asked for money for the master plan, but I don't know if we wanted to address that again or not.
Yeah, no, I probably, let me pull out the one from last year and take a look at it. I just can't. I personally just need to visualize it to see if there's
Okay.
anything else.
Yeah, what we can do is I can have Megan can, it's online. She can send you the new copy. They're asking for a flat line budget and a 5% reduction. But then there is also what's called capital use for larger practices. And typically we've gotten, new cabinets, new secretary's chair, things along that line. So I don't know if there's anything that the board needs.
Probably pay raise would help, but that's okay. We can
Yeah.
double.
Good luck on that one.
Michael,
Oh,
I updated the briefing paper on the master plan to change the dates or the number of years that our documents are languishing, and also added another functional plan that I came across. The water commissioners have a water conservation plan that they had developed in 2005. So that increases, I think, the number of functional plans to 4. Anyway, I can send that to you with a copy to Alan anytime.
that water moratorium could have potential problems for that land on Griffin. It's a 91 acre parcel of land. And I think Randy's going to bring that to their attention at the meeting on the 20th. Because it would be a large commercial use, which would be great for the town. But again, not knowing what it's going to be used for, we won't know their water use yet.
Right. No, it's certainly going to have to be addressed. I'm sure it will.
Yeah, it would be interesting for the planning board members to listen to the last water commissioners meeting. They started to discuss the moratorium, but there are only 2 members present. And they felt like they couldn't really make a decision on adjusting the moratorium or setting a date for its reconsideration or expiration or whatever you want to say. But there's ongoing dialogue between our chairman and the commissioners, so.
There is. Okay. Anything, any other, Jessica offered her thoughts on the bylaw to at least start initially with. Any other thoughts between solar and, well, I suppose we could.
I just wanted to add that the reason for that is that the sign bylaw is something that we were considering adjusting in lieu of a violation to the bylaw versus the solar bylaw, which is it's been public requested that we take a look into it by multiple residents. So I think we should give that priority, as well as to recognize the increase of solar applications that we can expect to receive as a town in the future.
Oh, that's fair. Anybody else?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the folks requesting information about, changing the solar bylaw, they've been patiently waiting for a lot longer, I think, than anybody else.
Okay. So Alan, why don't we get that on for the, well, we'll see what happens tonight, and then we'll get that on at the appropriate time to deal with.
Okay.
We'll talk about it at the end of this meeting, and we'll get that on there.
Okay.
Okay. And Megan, if you could put something about the short-term rental subcommittee on there, I will address that. We'll get that set up at the next meeting. I think we have everything in that we need, so we'll get that set up.
No problem.
All right, so I will turn this over to Marcus to handle the Verizon hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. It's 7:15, and I'd like to reopen the public hearing on the application of Verizon for a cell tower at 13 Liberty Lane. We've been hearing this for about 3 months, and we, of course, will have more presentations and discussion this evening as appropriate. Let's see, I think the first thing to consider is the latest submissions from Verizon. So I would turn it over to Attorney Fenton initially. Then I expect to allow Attorney Campanelli, if he is participating, or anyone else representing the residents. Then we'd move on to questions and answers. I'd like to finally review the materials that I would ask Megan and Alan to assemble for the planning board members to look at as they would like to, because we have a lot of documentation and material that's been submitted. And that's pretty much what I was hoping to accomplish this evening, maybe a couple other things at the very end before I turn it back over to Mr. Doherty. So,
Marcus, if I may, I apologize. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting that if anybody, if they could sign into the chat.
all right.
Most of you have all done it in the past, so you're doing it anyways, but I forgot to mention that, so I apologize. If everybody could just sign in with their name and address so that we can have a sign-in sheet, that'd be great. Sorry, Marcus.
Right. If there's new participants or returning folks who have done that before, as Michael said, please go to the chat and just put in your name and address and we'll be all set. So we have it for our minutes and the record. So having said that, I'll turn it over to Attorney Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Attorney Michael Fenton. I'm a shareholder at the law firm of Schatz, Schwartz and Fenton in Springfield. Our address is 1441 Main Street, Suite 1100. Our firm is counsel to Verizon Wireless, and I'm joined by my colleagues at the firm, attorneys Ellen Fryman and Stephen Sobey. Also joined by the full complement of Verizon Wireless's team of in-house personnel and outside consultants, including Kip DeVito and Jay Latore, our radio frequency experts with Verizon Wireless, Sylvester Bahimi, our engineer and architect with Hudson Design Group, Dean Gustafson with All Points Technologies in the event that there are any conservation or wetland questions that arise, David Vivian, who is our leasing specialist and consultant with Structure Consulting. We're also joined by David Archambault, who is a principal with VSS and was responsible for conducting the most recent balloon float and producing the visual simulation packet that the board should have as a part of the record. And we're also joined lastly by Jerry Franklin of Bennett Franklin Real Estate from East Long Meadow. His organization was responsible for the certified appraisal report that was submitted to you and the supplementary update to that report, which we submitted to you just in the last few days. Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to just go over some of the materials that we submitted as a part of Verizon's 5th and 6th supplemental submissions. And before I do, I would just like to thank the members of the public and the board who attended our successful balloon float on December 18th. Despite the issues that we had before with weather and other circumstances, it was a very successful float. And we would like to thank the members of the public and the board for coming and participating in that event in the interest of seeing potential visibility of the proposed tower. So as a result of that float, Mr. Chair, we were able to produce some photo simulations. And we also had a request from a member of the planning board during the course of that float to show some alternative designs with a monopine design. And that's the reason that you have some of the supplemental materials that are before you. So I'll start with the 5th supplemental submission. This was submitted to you on December 31st. And there were 2 updates to the record. One was the all-important and long-anticipated second photographic simulation package. As I think all of you know, this was designed and is a simulation showing what the monopole tower would look like from the locations in the neighborhood where the balloon was visible on December 18th. The simulation packet shows the very minor, very narrow impacts that the tower will have in the surrounding community. And it affirms the technology and the evidence that Verizon has submitted thus far. It also includes, as I indicated a little earlier, an option for a monopine design for the top portion of the tower that will stick above the tree line. So in those very limited and narrow circumstances where the tower is expected to be visible, and again, of all the pictures we took over all these different months, it's a very, very limited view shed. In those locations, we've shown what a monopine design would look like to even further lessen any visual impact that it may have in this location. So that's the first component of the supplement, and I would submit to you it's the most important. So at the end of my introduction, I would ask leave of the board for us to have Mr. Archambault run through that presentation specifically. The second component of our 5th supplemental submission was an update to the zoning drawings. At the last hearing, Chairman Phelps requested that we look into moving the access road 20 to 25 feet to the west in order to avoid any potential wind throw issues with the surrounding trees and vegetation. We consulted with Cotton Tree Service, our expert forester, and was able to make that accommodation. The access road has included the dog leg and the shifting 25 feet to the west as requested by the board at the last hearing. That completes the 5th supplemental submission. The 6th supplemental submission, which was sent to the board earlier today, has 3 different components. One is another update to the zoning drawings showing the dimensions and specifications for the monopine, which is a camouflaging of the tower to make it look like a pine tree and the surrounding vegetation. And we'd be happy to discuss that with the board. And then the last 2 items that were submitted, one was an independent RF analysis report. This report we ordered from an independent consultant out of Auburn, New Hampshire, a company known as C-Squared Systems. Based on testimony from the abutters, some members of the planning board, and counsel to some of the abutters, we felt it was important that Verizon provide an independent third-party review of our radio frequency testimony. And so that's the reason for this 23-page report. They review Verizon's underlying data for coverage and come to the conclusion that there is a coverage gap in this area of town and that the proposed facility would help to mitigate that coverage gap. So that is now part of the record for your review. And last but not least, we have an update to the appraisal prepared by Bennett Franklin Real Estate. And this update takes into consideration the visual simulations that were prepared based on the balloon float on the 18th. I think when we go through, I hope that there's a feeling that it's a very minimal impact to the neighborhood as a result of this flow. And so that is something that was further taken into consideration by Bennett Franklin Real Estate Services in preparing for this appraisal. And I would just like to point out to the board that I know there's been some letters submitted from other real estate agents and real estate attorneys in the area. And they've, indicated that the potential impact on property values as a result of the quote unquote massive tower and imposing visual would be somewhere, some of them said in the range of 20 to 30% reduction. There is no empirical basis for those conclusions, and our conclusions are based on a certified appraisal rather, from a licensed appraiser who has taken into consideration all the material submitted, including most importantly, the visual simulations. And you'll also note that in this appraisal report, it takes into consideration recent listings and transactions in the specific neighborhood in question. Particularly sales that happened on a very expedited basis after the submission of Verizon's now very public application for this tower. They again come to the conclusion that there will be no diminution in market value of surrounding properties as a result of this proposed tower. So again, Mr. Chair, those are the documents that we've submitted since the last hearing. Because of the importance of the visual simulation report, I would ask that we allow David Archambault, our consultant, to walk through the findings that we have and he has made since that float, and to answer any questions that the board might have about the materials that he submitted in that simulation.
Yes, Mr. Archambault could have the floor.
Thank you and good evening. And I want to thank you all for the very good pronunciation of my last name. That usually doesn't happen very often. So I also want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to come out and perform the balloon test. We have documented this particular site probably more extensively than most sites that we do. To give you a little background on how we prepare for this, my company produces a computer modeling program that gives us a very good idea of where the balloon or a tower at a particular height is seen before we come out to the site the first time. We make that model so that we have something to look at and work from, just to hopefully make sure we don't miss any sites. We use helium balloons. Typically balloons are blown up to a 3-foot diameter, and we use that diameter for size of the simulation after the photos are done. This particular case, we were requested to blow the balloons up to 4 foot. We have a tool that we use, sort of shaped like a football goalpost that is measured at 4 foot. It actually can be adjusted to be measured at multiple distances. We blow up the balloon until it contacts both sides and has a little rub on it. We attach that with a plastic clip to a line that is braided nylon, so it does not stretch. The nylon is color coded. Every 25 feet, the overall color of the line changes. And in each 25-foot section, it's broken up into 5-foot sections with a double white line with a black line in the middle. We count those lines as they go out, and we count them as they come in just to confirm. All of this is on what is known as a kite rod, which is essentially a small fishing rod. We have attached a fishing rod holder to a custom steel plate that weighs about 10 pounds, so that the balloon doesn't pull the base from where it's supposed to be. We use GPS and additional markings that were put out there, flaggings that were put out there by the engineers to determine the location where we start. This last balloon test we did, we flew a yellow balloon, as we have not flown a yellow balloon there previously. Clearly, the photos that we do have of the balloon are yellow, and that with the snow on the ground clearly signify that they were taken that last day that we did the balloon tests, which I believe was on the 18th. Once the balloon is up in the air, we left somebody at the balloon site to just stay there and make sure everything was good. And I drove around the neighborhood up to a mile, and in a few cases further than a mile away, to take pictures, including all the roads right around the site, the proposed site. And we took pictures from locations that where we were requested to, along with at intervals on most of the roads around, to show that we were there and we looked and we didn't see. We did find a couple of places where it was visible. Some of them were difficult to do simulations because the balloon was so far in the woods, though it could be seen. A yellow or a red balloon is a little bit easier to see than a gray pole. But where we could find the balloon, we did a simulation of it. I don't know if you guys have that simulation package in front of you. I can certainly go through all the photos. I can also go through a few of the photos if you would like.
I believe all the members should have access to that packet. I guess if you want to show anything, show the locations where it was visible. I'd appreciate it, if we could keep this to a reasonable amount of time since we do have the hard copy and online
Okay.
information.
So,
David-
I'll go
David,
through
why don't
the,
David, why don't you why don't you show the map at the beginning that shows where you took the photos from and where they're visible, and then just go to the ones that are visible. I think that would be helpful. So you can see all the locations it's not visible on that first map as well.
hang on one second. So I'm gonna try to share my screen here. Can I share my screen? That's good. So if you want me to show the screen, you have to give me permission.
Michael Doherty,
Megan-
are you
Megan can do that, I think,
managing? Megan can?
or Michael can.
We'll work on it.
Try it now.
Okay. Let's start off with this and hit share. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. It's an aerial photo.
Yep. So this is a digital format of the report that you have in front of you. It's all the same. It just, instead of flipping through the pages, I can click on the pages easier. The star here represents the location of the tower, proposed tower, and where we did the balloon test from. The red dots here represent places where we put a photo in where the balloon was not visible. The yellow, the 3 yellow here is number 11, number 2, and 23 is where we could see the balloon, but it was obstructed view. And the green, the 1 green dot here is where we could see the balloon and feel that all year long, we would also be able to see the balloon, at least see a portion of the tower at all times. I'll start off with the 1 full green one. You can see that I took 3 photos here, 16, 17, and 18. If you want to go to your pages, 16, 17, and 18. And the reason I did that was to show you that though, yes, on 17, where you can see the balloon right here in the middle, and I'll zoom in for a little bit so the balloon is there. This is the picture that you have with the balloon in it. So we feel that even once this tree has leaves on it, you would still see it. And walking this distance here is where that balloon would be visible. But once you got to 18 or once you got to 16, the balloon would not be visible anymore going in either direction right there. So we have the simulation, the balloon itself there. Then the simulation, and again, I'll zoom in so you can see that the tower is in place there in the trees. And then the last simulation, which is of a tower with antennas and branches above the antennas. Because in order to do a pine tree, which we were just asked this last time to incorporate a faux pine or a monopine as they're known, the branches actually have to be above the antennas a little bit in order to get that shape of a tree to look realistic. So those are the simulations for the one site that you can see it year round. This one here seemed to be, yes.
David, if I could interrupt for a second. Can you, I don't think that the public can really see those images big enough to appreciate the balloon. So is there a way to make those full screen images for 17 and the one you're about to show for 11?
I can, like this.
No, your screen's not changing. Your screen's not changing. We're still only seeing the main satellite image, and then the small thumbnails on the left.
Okay, let's go back to this one then. And I will go to photo 17. So can you see it now?
We cannot.
That's, did I stop sharing for somehow?
I am not sure. We can still see the satellite image with the red, yellow, and green dots, and the smaller thumbnail images to the left.
Yeah, it says, hang on, it does say my screen sharing has paused. How about now?
We can see zooming out.
Okay, so for some reason my screen had paused. I looked at the direction, the key over there. So if I do this and do that,
No, the image doesn't come up. It stays minimized.
These are down below in this document, aren't they individually
yes,
down below in the document?
they are. I don't know why it's not sharing. It says it's sharing.
There we go. We can see that.
Okay. I'm not sure why it's only taking one thing at a time here, I think. This is photo 11, and the balloon is, or actually this one is the simulation of the antennas. Did that zoom in and zoom out for you guys? I apologize for.
Yes, it did. It went okay.
This is Gary Julius. I just want to note that photo 11 on what was submitted to the board on the Southwick website is not that picture. So things are mixed up there. If you open up the document that was submitted on the Southwick site, I think it's 12 that you're looking at there. Even though the legend says says 11 on the aerial photo, but
You are
11 is
correct.
not the picture we're looking at. So that's
Can you-
incorrect.
Can you still see my screen?
No.
How about now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. So this is the document here, and you're right, that is photo 12. And I'm gonna just stay with the document and scroll through this. It seems like this will work a little better. So the balloon is right here in the trees. So the bottom of the balloon is the top of the tower. That's what we measure to, is to the bottom of the balloon, not the top of the balloon. And then the balloon is a 4-foot round balloon. So the top of the antennas would be at the top of the balloon. And when you see the monopine simulation, you'll see that the branches are a little bit higher than the balloon. If we go back to the full size, the next picture is a monopole. And again, in order to see it, you kind of have to scroll in to see just the top of the antennas in the trees. And again, during the summer, when the leaves are on the trees, I don't believe you'll see it at all. And then we did a monopine here. And if we zoom into that, you can see that the monopine is in there. Typically, you make the monopines nice and green. As the winter goes on, the regular pine trees do darken up a little bit, and the pine needles on the monopines do not change. But unless you are really looking for that, I don't believe that you would see it from this location. We'll go back to 17 here just to make sure that everyone saw that. With 17 here, the balloon right there in the middle, the yellow balloon. If I zoom in, you can clearly see the balloon there. And again, you'll be able to see this year round. I'm sorry? Okay.
Somebody's unmuted. If you're not speaking, please mute.
So we did a regular monopole simulation and a monopine simulation of this one shot that we feel is the only location where the tower would be visible year round. To go back to the very beginning here, these are where we took all the photos. And because there's so many, they're overlapping. We did a blow up shot of where the photos were taken for the lower half. And for these right here to show the one spot here and here where it is visible. Again, 16 and 18 are to show on either side of that. It is no longer visible. It's just in that short, about 20-foot area where it is visible there. Once you come around the corner, there is a section here again where it's visible. And there it is right there. And then we had, I forget what number that was. 17 is there. And we had this location here, photo 23. In the woods, again, very hard to see. We did put an arrow on it for the balloon. And if you zoom in, you can see the balloon in the trees. Again, once that tower is there, you would have to be looking for it in order to see it in this location. But we still made a 3D model and made the simulations. You can see looking at your full length normal eye view, it is very hard to see, but we can zoom in on here. Not that you can do that without binoculars on site, but you can see that the antennas are in there. One other thing I would like to point out, when we do take our photos, we use special cameras that are pre-programmed to replicate the view of a human eye to the nearest possible that you can, and not zoom in or zoom out to either help or hurt the image. We only take photos at the one setting. So it does represent the eye as best we can. We can go through all the ones again that where we didn't see the balloon, but essentially those 4 places are where it's visible. Are there any questions?
Yes, any questions from board members? I think in the interest of time, that's enough of the presentation as far as the photo simulations. Any questions from planning board members?
Real quick, in the monopine configuration, how much taller would the pine branches or whatever you want to call it extend beyond the top of the tower?
You would have to talk to an engineer about that, but what I have seen in places where we have done these and they've built the towers later, It's anywhere from 3 to 6 feet, depending on the style and how they're trying to blend in with the surroundings. That's
Sylvester,
from the top of the tower, sorry.
Sylvester, would you mind answering that? And to get to Member Spina's question, if you could call up sheet A2 on the revised zoning drawings, that'll show us more detail of what he's asking about there.
All right, if I could share the screen. I probably would need to share the screen. Can I get permission?
Or
Mr.
David needs to stop sharing.
Okay,
Mr. Doherty, yeah.
yep.
It should work.
It's visible.
Okay, so this is a sheet A2 showing the monopine and the height of the branches will extend some 3 feet, 10 feet above the antennas. And they will begin at the average height of the existing tree canopy, average height, and they'll go all the way to the top of the antennas. There's going to be a T-arm type of frame, which is less robust compared to the regular platform where it's just a monopole. Basically, that's the graphical representation of the monopine.
Thank you.
So did you say 3 feet?
Yeah, roughly 3 feet.
Okay.
3 feet
3
10
feet.
inches.
3 feet 10 inches. Okay. 4 feet. Okay. Thank you.
I had a question. You've been using the term view shed, and I noticed on the aerial photo there was a yellow circle that was drawn. Is that what you were determining to be the view shed?
The yellow circle represents a 1 mile distance from the site, and that's where we do the work, is typically within a mile of the site.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from the planning board or town officials?
I just wanted to point out that while it's been stated that this new photo simulation is a perfect rendition and fully supports Verizon's case, I just want to point out that even just from my own viewing and driving around, I could see the balloon from locations that aren't marked as being visible. And I also find it interesting that we took 3 really tight together photos in spots 16, 17, and 18 to demonstrate that the balloon is only visible from this spot, but not 5 feet in the other direction. But we didn't do that near photos number 25 and number 26, where I could clearly see the balloon while driving in my car, never mind getting out and taking photos that are supposed to show the visualization. So I appreciate the work Mr. Archambault did, but it is certainly not a complete record of all the visuals that are there. at least just from my own viewing as a person that drove around and could see it. So,
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Fenton.
Just, we would submit that Verizon has taken an extensive number of photos, Ms. Thornton, from around the entire vicinity, and this is an accurate depiction. So we also took photos from all the locations that were requested in advance by the planning board. And you'll notice those photos in your packet. So if there are locations that you feel strongly are missing from this report, which were visible, we'd invite members of the public, as we have throughout this process, including yourself, to submit those photos of the balloon that are allegedly missing into the record. But short of that, we have and make the accurate and complete representation that this is an accurate depiction of the very limited visual impact that this tower would have.
I think it's not reasonable to suggest that myself or a member of the public would have taken 3 simultaneous photographs like you did in section 16, 17, and 18 in order to prove that there was a visibility spot between number 26 and number 28. For me to be able to preconceive of a location that I would need to request of you is ridiculous. But I can appreciate what you're saying, although it is not a full accurate depiction because you didn't supply photos from every view that could possibly be done. So you can't make that claim that you've provided every possible. You just can't.
Okay, so we need to move on here. I know some of the residents have photographs too that I'm sure will be discussed, hopefully when Attorney Campanelli has a time here to discuss things. So any other questions from the board or town officials? Questions from the public, but not particularly referring to anything that Attorney Campanelli might be presenting.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Dave, go ahead, Dave.
I've run a couple of numbers and I've looked at your balloon float, and what the balloon float suggests is that it represents 3%. That's 3% of the visual impact to our community based on the geometry of the balloon and the available area of the cell tower and the array. So how can you tell us that a simple balloon that is simply representing 3% of the visible area to our community represents what we are actually going to see when this balloon or when this tower is installed? If it is installed, please explain this to us. And again, this is based on the math. You guys, and all it takes is algebra, high school algebra. Go through it, and what they are showing with this balloon is 3% of the visible area of this tower. And you expect us to come to a conclusion based on 3%? Please explain this to all of us.
Any response?
Mike, would you like me to answer that?
Yeah, David, to the extent, yeah, you can respond.
The simple thing with the balloon float is to give a representation of where the balloon is going to be and where the top of the tower is going to be located. And by using that, we take a 3D model and put it into the picture, and it's covered by, from that picture, whatever's in front of it.
Okay, we need to move on. Attorney Campanelli, if you would like to have the floor here and
Yes, good evening. Thank you. Thank you for affording me that opportunity to speak. It's Andrew Campanelli, 1757 Merrick Avenue, Suite 204, Merrick, New York. Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to address the balloon test and the aesthetic impact. I assume that you want me limited to that. I don't know if the applicant has further presentation this evening. I can address things by topic one at a time or simply respond as they go along. What would be your preference, Mr. Phelps?
I would prefer you to address the materials that you submitted. So I think it was a lot about the balloon float, but if there was
Great.
anything else.
Great. Okay. Well, for starters, as accurately pointed out by a member of the board, the balloon, even the most recent submissions are inherently defective. And when I say inherently defective, I'm talking about under the standard of federal law. Look, federal courts have made it clear for the past 16 years that when an applicant wants to submit any type of visual analysis, if the visual analysis omits images taken from the perspective of the closest properties, real estate homeowners' properties, it is inherently defective and should properly be disregarded by the board. Now, it is critical to me to create a proper record because I don't want to allow the applicant to mislead anyone or to poison the record in any way. Now, they've known about this case, OmniPoint, for the past 16 years. The last time I was here, it was discussed. I gave a brief where I explained how they're supposed to do this. Now, the applicant said, I said my clients would let them go on their properties and take the photographs. It's apparent to me that Verizon did not want to do that. And that's apparent based upon an agreement that they wanted the homeowners to sign before they went on the property. And it is critical for the record to be clear what it says. They drafted an agreement which would have required my clients and the homeowners to indemnify and defend Verizon for any negligence. So if Verizon went on a property and injured somebody or damaged the property or hurt someone and got sued, this agreement that they would have to sign would require the homeowners to pay for Verizon's defense, to pay for any injuries suffered by any third parties, for any negligence on the part of Verizon, except if they could prove it was gross negligence. Now, no attorney worth their salt is going to let their clients sign something as nonsensical as this. So Verizon, I don't actually believe my clients were going to sign this. I believe this is indicia of bad faith that they didn't want to go on the properties and take those photographs because they would show, as anybody can see with the naked eye, the trees in the area there are not going to shield a 120-foot tower from the visual impact it's going to inflict upon the nearby homes. Never mind the backyards, but forget about the second-story windows. And I say second-story windows because I'm referring to OmniPoint. It is clear from this latest submission, it is more of the same. These photographs, look at them, you know the neighborhood. They are strategically chosen from perspective which look like they minimize the adverse impact. Anyone who's been there knows this tower is going to be far more adverse as far as this adverse aesthetic impact that what they're portraying in their disclosures, which is likely why they didn't want to provide any photographs taken from the actual perspective of the homeowners who are going to suffer the worst adverse aesthetic impacts. Now, I've heard from homeowners. There are some on tonight. I'm hoping they'll speak up and you'll hear from them. But again, I also want to point out, it is not the obligation of this board to tell Verizon from what perspective it's supposed to take the photos. They go to great lengths to say, this is our, we've taken from all the locations you told us to take them from, that you chose. It is under federal law. It is not the board's burden to figure out from what perspective they're supposed to take the photographs. They know exactly where they're supposed to take the photographs from, and they haven't. There's no gray area here. The OmniPoint case came down in 2005. It's never changed. Now, and by the way, for the record, I have submitted, along with a letter dated December 15th, a copy of the ridiculous agreement that Verizon wanted the property owners to sign as a condition of them doing what they're supposed to do, that being go on their properties and take the photographs to give this board an accurate representation of the actual adverse aesthetic impact this 12-story tower is going to inflict upon this neighborhood. They haven't done anything even remotely close to that. And the only other thing I want to add is that they have no right to come to you and dictate conclusions. They can't tell you under federal law, this is not going to have a significant adverse impact. That is not for them to say. They can introduce what they believe to be evidence that it won't have a significant adverse impact. But this board and this board alone has the power to make the factual determination whether it will or will not have a significant adverse aesthetic impact on the nearby property owners based upon the evidence in the record. And they have not given you evidence to show a lack of significant adverse aesthetic impact. And if any of the board members, other than the one that spoke, actually drove by and saw the balloon test, you know that reality is very much different than what's being represented to you by this applicant. That's all I would talk about for the adverse aesthetic impact. There are, and when, again, I've heard the statement on the record from the applicant, they've given an exhaustive list of photos. I don't care how many photos they give you. If they're not photographs taken from the perspective of the nearby homeowners, they are useless, if not misleading. Now, it is important to me that the board understand that the board and the board alone gets to make fact-finding determinations. There are two types of determinations you must make, fact-finding determinations. First, you must make your own local zoning code determination. They were laid out in our memorandum. Will this 12-story tower dropped in the middle of a residential neighborhood where no other structure stands more than 2 stories in height, will it have a significant adverse aesthetic impact on the homes? Will it have a significant adverse impact on the property values? Again, we have submitted evidence in the form of professional opinions from real estate brokers. They submitted an appraisal, and significantly, tonight, the attorney for the applicant said that appraiser took into account their visual impact analysis in coming up with their appraisal. So their appraisal is inherently defective because it's based upon, at least in part, a completely defective visual analysis. Here's the thing that has to be made clear. Under federal law, you, the board, get to decide the weight to be given to any piece of evidence. You and you alone get to determine which is more credible, the professional opinions of the real estate brokers from the area or the real estate appraisal report, which is based upon a defective visual impact analysis. That is up to you. You get to decide all of the factual issues under your zoning code. Now, in addition to that, and again, I'm creating a record, you must also make Telecommunications Act determinations, and there are 2 of them. You and you alone get to determine whether or not this applicant has proven that there is a significant gap in Verizon's personal wireless services. They don't get to tell you there's a gap. It's a question of fact that you get to decide based upon the evidence that's been submitted before you. And right now, despite all of the papers they want to bury you with, they have still failed to provide a shred of probative data. There's no drive test records of the signal strengths. They gave you a report, but no data upon which the report is created. Worst of all, if you read their submissions, Verizon says their goal is to have a dropped call rate of no greater than 0.6%. That's less than 1 out of 100 calls failing. That's what they're claiming their coverage gap, their coverage level they want to achieve. That, under federal law, does not constitute a significant gap in service, and the board is in no way required to grant the application based upon that alleged significant gap in service. That is also entirely consistent with Verizon's own data map. Attached to the first memo as Exhibit C is Verizon's own coverage map, which shows there are no significant gaps in wireless service at the precise location where they want to build the tower. That doesn't mean this seamless perfect coverage. If you read Verizon's website, which is connected to Verizon's database, it says this doesn't guarantee seamless coverage. That's correct. But what the map shows is there is no significant gap in wireless service here. Here's why that's relevant. One of the constraints under federal law that the Telecommunications Act imposes upon the town is that You must grant their application, even if it violates your code, if denying the application would effectively prohibit Verizon from providing personal wireless services. Well, how do you prove that? Under federal law, to show that burden, the applicant has the burden of proving two things. They have a significant gap in personal wireless services. And number two, this proposed installation at this proposed site, at this section of that site, and at the height proposed is the only viable means of remedying that gap. If it can be shorter, it could be on an alternative location, they don't meet the test and you have no obligation to grant the application. But you must make the fact-finding determinations. You must say whether or not, based upon the evidence submitted, Verizon has established that it suffers from a significant gap in personal wireless services. And I submit to you, based upon the complete lack of probative data, that they've absolutely failed to establish that Verizon has a significant gap in personal wireless services. Nor are they able to show they actually need this tower, much less at this height, because they want to get a dropped call rate of 0.6%. You're not obligated to guarantee that they have seamless coverage. So they haven't met either of those requirements under the Telecommunications Act. So I ask the board, please make sure you make those fact-finding determinations, because if you don't, even if you deny it for a perfectly valid reason, like the adverse aesthetic impact, if you have failed to address their claims of significant gap or least intrusive means, you open the door. They can then bring an action in federal court to try to overturn your decision because you simply failed to make a fact-finding determination. So please create a record and make those fact-finding determinations. Now, I'm well aware of the thinly veiled suggestions that if you deny the application, they might bring a suit. Well, first of all, if you make the proper fact-finding determinations in a written decision, and for each of those determinations, you cite the evidence in the record based upon which you made the decision, you insulate your decision from challenge. But even if somehow you render a decision, you violate the act and they sue you, my response is I don't care. Because if they sue and win, the town doesn't have to pay them a penny. They don't recover attorney's fees. They don't recover damages. They've tried, but the Supreme Court of the United States, it says, no, they don't get it. So any threats of federal litigation are hollow.
Did you have any photographs in your packet of information you provided, or were those coming from someone else?
I believe the homeowners are sending them directly. I'm aware homeowners saw the balloon tests from their second-story windows, from their backyards. I believe they have submitted or will be submitting photos if they haven't already.
Amy Stack here, Attorney Campanelli. I can share my screen if it's of interest to
Yes,
see the pictures.
Can I let her intervene to show the photographs, Mr. Phelps?
First, I have a question. Megan Lightcap, do we have those? Do we have that file of the photos?
I sent it to you today.
Okay, so the planning board members would have what Amy
No, I'm sorry.
Stack is showing.
We do have what Amy sent, although I will say that we didn't get the 7th or the 6th supplemental information. I haven't seen any of that.
Okay, so Amy Stack, go ahead and share.
Okay. So here on the left is a picture from the balloon site location where you can see the balloon above the tree line. Here is a video of the balloon test, and you can see the balloon swaying back and forth. This was the device used for the balloon test right here. We then proceeded to gather pictures not only from residential properties and second-story windows, but multiple locations that were not listed as being visible in the Verizon submission to the board. So as you can see from this view is from 11 Patriots Way. I believe it's looking out on Deb Patron's property. You can see that the balloon is visible here. And from her second-story window, you can see it as well. And out of 12 Patriots Way, out of second-story window. 13 Patriots Way, you can also see it. Granted, there's some trees here, but with the deforestation that's going to occur and the potential additional 20 feet in height, I would anticipate that it would be much more visible. You can also see it at this location behind 19 Patriots Way as well. So I think we're up to, let's see, 11, 12, 13, 19 Patriots Way. This is the view from the second story of 19 Patriots Way's window. Again, without deforestation, and a 4-foot balloon when the tower is anticipated to be 16 cubic feet in diameter. This is between 3 and 5 Lexington, so this kind of coincides with what we saw before on picture 12 that Verizon submitted. But as you can see with the slate wind that we had, we have a video here showing showing it moving back and forth. I'll play that for you guys.
Friday, December 18th, 11:42.
And this is behind 41 Lexington Circle. You can see the tree in between the trees here, the balloon. There was also a picture taken from the property owner's kitchen, although it was taken from a phone, so the pixelization was not the greatest, but you could see it from their kitchen window as well. And then again, on the corner of Patriots Way and Lexington Circle, you can see it here. These trees will be taken away, so I'm anticipating it will look much worse. And at the time of the balloon test, we also had an aerial view, a drone go up at the height of the balloon at the time it was flying. And as you can see, at the 120-foot height that they are claiming it was at, it's well above the tree line. So when you take away more trees, it will be more visible. We also took the opportunity to look at submissions from Verizon before and their simulations, adding the monopole in the designated areas where we thought it was most visible. And although we understand the application is for a 120-foot tower, we know with the Middle Tax Class Relief Act of 6409A, it can go an additional 20 feet in height. So we thought it would benefit the board to understand what it would look like at 140 feet. So Mr. Gary Ulias, thank you, Gary, compiled this information and put forth before the board what it could look like at 140 feet without deforestation. This is again, other aerial view, another depiction at 140 feet at a Pine Knoll location and at Patriots Way, right behind Deb's house. So hopefully that's helpful. I don't know if there's any questions. Attorney Campanelli, I just thought it would be beneficial to share that as part of our submission in the event board members were not able to review it prior to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to stop sharing your screen?
Yep.
Okay, just so I'm clear, I'm hoping that the board members received, we submitted a letter with 2 additional exhibits dated December 15th. Did the board members get that?
Can you be a bit more specific?
Sure, there was a letter dated December 15th, and the 2 exhibits that we attached to it was, number 1 was the consent and waiver that Verizon was demanding all of the property owners sign as a condition of them going onto the property to take the proper balloon tests. And again, this is critical because I do not want the applicant to be able to claim that they were precluded from taking the proper photos of the balloon simulation because the property owners would not allow them to go on the property. The property owners were eager to have Verizon go on their properties to take the proper photos, as Verizon knows it's required to do under federal law. But they were not going to sign an agreement to defend Verizon in a lawsuit if by Verizon's negligence they hurt somebody through their negligence, had property damages. There was no reason for them to require property owners to sign such a ridiculous agreement. And again, no attorney worth their salt is going to let their clients sign anything like that. So my perspective is this is really bad faith. They really didn't want to go on the property. They wanted to try to portray this from the perspectives that try to minimize the appearance of the balloon test. So it is what it is. Exhibit B is the simulation, the most recent simulation for Verizon. The cell tower, the balloon test from December 12th, 2020. But the letter of December 15th addresses on a fact-by-fact analysis the findings that I would hope the board would make based upon the evidence that you now have before you in the record. Look, I do this all over the country. I've been doing it for 28 years. There is more than sufficient evidence to show why this application should properly be denied. They don't have a right to a special permit. They're applying for a special permit. It is their burden to establish that they meet the requirements of your code with probative evidence, which they still have refused to provide. Not one shred of data from a drive test. They give you conclusions and reports, but not actual data. So I thank you for your time. I don't want to take any more time. We have our submissions, and I thank the board for the time this evening.
Yes, we do have that letter dated December 15th. I was looking at it here. So it's
Thank you, Mr.
the record. It's available to the members of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps.
I'd like to wrap up the presentation section now and open it for any questions from planning board members to either the applicant's representative or Attorney Campanelli. Thank you. Any questions from the public or comments? Thank you. I would entertain a motion to close this hearing.
Before we close, I got one question. It's not really for either of the residents or Verizon, but I think from one of the very earlier meetings, we had said that we were going to reach out to town council to find out about this extension of the height potential, and if in the granted, claim to be unlawful, they came back and said, hey, we want to put an extra however far 20 feet of tower on it, would we have the opportunity to actually, review and approve and or reject that application, or would we just be forced to approve it? Maybe I missed it, but I don't remember ever getting an answer to that question to see if we'd actually reached out to them.
Alan, did you have information on that? I know I sent that question to you.
Yes, I talked to Attorney Beglin, and Attorney Beglin expressed the concern that our decision can be written in such a position that the tower will not be more than 120 feet. And if they wanted to modify that, they would have to come back to another meeting for a modification. And going by what we've heard so far, seems that we would be denied. And also the design of the monopole, because the pole is typically wider at the base and it becomes very narrow as it goes up to the top. You could not put another addition on top unless you replaced the whole pole and went through the whole procedure, which would be a very costly thing. So he cautioned that our decision should be very clear on what is proposed.
I'd like to say something. Can you hear me?
Dave, go ahead.
Yeah. What whoever just commented on the addition of this pole, is absolutely incorrect. I'm an engineer, director of engineering for a high-tech company in Boston, and I can do anything with anything. So don't tell me that they're coming in with a pool that restricts their limit to the future extension of this pool. It's simply nonsense. So stop listening to Verizon and listen to us. Thank you.
I'm listening to our town attorney. My name is Alan Slusler.
Yes. Well, Mr. Slessor, you're not an engineer. And
Yes,
if
I
you-
am.
Okay. Then have
Okay,
you run a
I
number?
think we don't
Okay.
need our back
Anyways.
and forth argument here. We've had the testimony and we have the record that we have. I will be asking planning board members to submit any questions that they would want Attorney Beglane to address relative to our deliberation and decision-making process. But right now, I'm looking for a motion to close the hearing.
Look, I'd like to close the hearing, but it's ingenuous.
No,
for
no,
your-
no, it's a planning board member. This is a planning board member, planning board function here. We've closed the testimony and so forth.
Make a motion to close the hearing regarding Verizon Power.
Do I hear a second?
Second. I'll give you a
Motion
second on
made
that.
by Mr. Utzinger and seconded by David Sutton to close the public hearing on the Verizon cell tower. Roll call vote. Marcus Phelps, aye.
Richard Ottinger, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
Dave Spina, aye.
Jessica Thornton, aye.
Thank you. So with the hearing closed, we have the record that we have. And I'm going to go over briefly some materials that I believe we need to have assembled. In particular, Megan, we need to get materials to Richard Utzinger for his review as we begin our deliberation and decision-making. So basically, this is what I'm thinking we need to have assembled. The Verizon application, which is the initial document, then the supplementals from Verizon, the materials from Attorney Campanelli, he referenced letters, any photographs provided by the residents, the minutes from all the meetings, the public hearing meetings, a copy of the town land lease that was signed by the select board. And is there anything else either Alan Slessler, the planner, or planning board members need to have to review?
Marcus, if I could, just from when I was previously on it, I know that there are submissions from residents, letters and emails and such, that should probably be part of what is reviewed. I believe I sent anything that came into me around. I don't know if there's anything else that came into others, but I believe that's been sent around, but I'll check again. And if it hasn't, I will send it around.
Okay, we want to, if Megan, you may want to check with Megan and validate or verify she has what you would have provided.
I will, yeah.
Thank you.
And you may want to make sure that, at least the initial stuff is on the website. I think there are some stuff missing. I know Attorney Campanelli mentioned the December 15th letter, which I don't believe is on the website. and some of the most recent stuff is not on the website. That may be a better way to, consolidate it and get it to everybody, that they could access it pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm thinking we'll send hard copy materials to Mr. Utzinger, and the other hard copy materials will be available in the planning board office for appointment, if people want to come in and look at it.
Marcus, we're gonna have to check with with Carl, because to see if outside people are allowed to come in to the town hall, because town hall is still closed. We've been meeting people remotely downstairs outside, which would be very hard to do. So I think we have to check to see if that can in fact happen.
Yes, that would be important, because we may have to go to a plan B if that's not going to be allowed, either down where we've been signing documents on the first floor there, on the south side of the building. The only other item I have here, if any of the board members have questions that they want to submit to town council, please send them to Megan, and I will look at those, and along with some that I have, as far as getting some direction on how we proceed to a decision, the implications of our decision, that sort of thing. But if you could get those in, I would say by early next week, let's say next Tuesday, week from today, because I'm anticipating we will deliberate on the decision findings, the procedures, the decision at the next meeting, which is January 19th. So I guess we'll decide how we want to handle that as far as an agenda item, whether we do it under routine business or we have it as a separate agenda item. But I guess it will come into play as we find out what else we have on the agenda for the next meeting on January 19th, 2021. Any other comments from planning board members?
Marcus, we're gonna need the Zoom information from Michael, but the deliberation is just for the planning board itself, correct?
Correct. It's our time to discuss this.
So
And
we gotta be
the review-
selective on sending the Zoom information out.
I don't think we need to, other than it's posted regularly on our town website as a planning board meeting.
Just give me a minute and I can post it in the chat.
Well, the thing is, if it's gonna be posted and it's gonna have the Zoom information on it, how are we gonna prohibit the public from reviewing that?
Hey guys, hey, this is Dave again, and I'm sure you don't want to hear from me, but we've been doing this for months. Why do we not have written minutes to these meetings?
Dave, I can speak to the ones that I was responsible for, which is,
No. I don't want you to respond to what you're responsible for. You're the town. Tell us why, as a town, as professionals, cannot present to us as a community the minutes of our meetings. It's very simple, and you guys know this.
We are reviewing minutes, and they will be
You've been
posted
telling me this
once
for
we
3
approve them and they file them with the town clerk. You can
Okay, so
request
when-
through the
okay,
planning
so when
board,
did that let?
you can request
no,
a
wait a minute.
draft copy of the minutes.
Yeah, okay, that's great. That's great bullshit. But we've been dealing this for months.
Okay,
And
can,
we've been asking you for
Michael,
this, and you
get
haven't
this
done it.
under control.
so as the person who's responsible for the early ones, I think we've gotten 2 of them done. They're probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 pages. They require listening to 3-hour plus hearings by both Megan and myself. I can only speak to myself with the one. I think I have one more that I have to finish looking at, I want to make them as complete as possible for this particular hearing that I was in part of. And frankly, I have 2 kids and a job. And so, I'm trying my best to listen through it, but I have other things that I need to get done that are frankly more important. So I'm trying my best and they will get done. But what we have done in the meantime, at least, again, I can speak to the ones that I'm responsible for. The audio is posted on the website, and we've told everybody this, and we've made it accessible. It is about as easy to get to as any of the Verizon materials that are on the website. There's a link that says audio minutes, I think, or something like that. I forget what it's called, but it's very clear what it is, and you can go and listen to them. There's no reason why that can't be done. We're doing our best to get the minutes done, but again, when you're talking about 3+ hour hearings on a matter that may very well turn into litigation, you want to make sure that you've done it correctly. And so that's my goal with the ones that I'm responsible for. I'll leave Marcus to talk about the ones that I'm not responsible for.
Okay, Michael, I have turned the meeting back over to you, and we'll continue with the rest of the agenda, which is going to include some minutes.
I can't. Well, I forget what we voted on so far, and what the one that I can't remember the date of the one that I'm still on the hook for, that I haven't finished yet.
Michael, it's the November meeting. We only had one.
So that's the one that's still I'm on the hook for. I can't participate in anything after that because the meetings are essentially this hearing. So it's not appropriate for me to participate in those minutes and any decisions on those minutes. So I will turn that over to you, Marcus, if you're comfortable with anything after when I had to recuse myself, and you want to vote on those tonight, you are more than happy to do so.
Okay, we'll take on December 1st, 2020 minutes. Is the planning board, I know we've looked it over, commented, I submitted comments to Megan, then
I made
revised.
some additions and edits and sent it out this evening to everybody to review on the December 1st meeting minutes.
Yes, and Megan sent that out. You had a couple minor corrections and then some text you added to it.
Yeah, that was directly from me. That wasn't from Megan.
Okay.
So she has not reviewed those and made official edits to them. If everybody is okay with the edits that I sent, then she can go forward with making those official and we can approve them verbally tonight. If everybody else has had the chance to review them, that is.
So if you sent them tonight, Jess, I haven't had a chance to send them out to anybody yet.
I forwarded them to everybody.
Oh, okay.
Reply all, you know.
Okay.
Hey, Jess, I have a
any
question for
comments
Jeff.
from the planning board on the December 1st? Do you want to act on it or defer it to the next meeting?
I'd rather defer it. I haven't had a chance to read the latest thing that Jessica sent out. Confident as I can be comprehensive. but I think it'd
We'll
be
table action
served
on
to do it.
December 1st. December 15th. Minutes.
I only got halfway through listening to that. There was a lot of information that I feel like needs to be added from Attorney Riva. There are a little bit more details about their response that needed to be added, but I did not have a chance to itemize them all.
So you feel the minutes that have been presented do not include all that material?
Correct, they're not complete.
Okay, we'll table any action on December 15th until our next meeting, which is January 19th. Those are the only two sets, I believe, that we have to look at while I was chairing the public hearing. So Michael, back to you.
Okay, and I am right now just typing in, trying not to make a mistake, the info for the next meeting into the chat if people want to take it down. Okay, so there's the meeting ID passcode for the next meeting. The phone number remains the same. You just need the meeting ID and passcode. And just as I was typing it, I see there's a question or a reference or question, I guess, from Matt Brown. Can a planning board have a closed meeting? Just as a chair, even though I'm not participating in the particular hearing, it's all done publicly. That this isn't something that would be that the board would enter into executive session on. To my knowledge, there doesn't meet any of the requirements for that. So this would all be done publicly. Anytime there is a quorum or discussion among a quorum of members, it would have to be done in the public, at a meeting. So it wouldn't be done at any kind of closed session. Okay. Anything else, board members, that we need to take care of? No,
It
nothing.
looks like there's more members of the public that are virtually raising their hands in the comment section.
Yeah, Amy, go ahead. Yep.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if Attorney Campanelli could speak to the Middle Tax Class Relief Act, the 6409. I know we closed the hearing, and I understand this may not be an opportunity for him to speak, but I figured since he's still on the line, if he could discuss that per Alan's comment earlier.
That's
And his-
entirely up to the board. I'm not stepping on toes. It's up to the board.
Marcus,
Yeah, Marcus, it's you. It's not me.
The hearing is closed for the record, and this is a question that we will be sending to our town council. I will be sending that question to town council for his position, since he is our legal advisor.
Understood. We may communicate something in writing based on Attorney Campanelli's experience as well. Thank you.
Okay. Board members, is there anything else?
Mr.
Fenton.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, just to clarify on that last statement made by Ms. Stack, if there are going to be additional submissions to the record, we would just ask that they be shared with us and we have an opportunity to supplement the record accordingly. So if the hearing is closed, then we're comfortable with the case that we've made, and that's all right. If there are going to be additional materials that the board considers, we would insist that those materials be shared with us and we'd be given an opportunity to respond. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I won't speak to this particular hearing. I'll just speak in general from past experience that I think to the extent that town council is involved and they're offering legal opinions, it certainly would be appropriate to offer that to particular parties involved in whatever hearing that is, to offer their legal opinions, or if they have attorneys involved, and obviously you being an attorney can offer your positions on that to the extent that they go to the written decision that's being deliberated. That's how it's been done in the past, but I'll leave it to Marcus as to how he wants to deal with this one. Okay, anything else from the board members? No? Okay. Mr. Sutton,
Make a motion to close the meeting.
do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Dougherty,
Yes.
just one point.
Yeah.
I want to defend Alan Slessler here, and I think it's abhorrent that the insults that were directed at Mr. Slessler that were not refuted. You know, there's been one person on this hearing that's been outspoken, and he's been given wide latitude to present his opinion and thoughts on this matter. But to impugn Mr. Slessler and the effort that he's put forth as a selectman and knowing Alan as long as I have, I just feel I wanted to go on record to thank Alan for the work that he's done and to let him know that personally, I don't think that that was right and shouldn't go unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Doug, that means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, and I certainly would second that. As Alan knows, he's not allowed to retire at any time. So, I think he knows my thoughts on that. Okay. Why don't we do a roll call vote? Megan, did you get the motion in the second? Who did it?
Yes, I did.
All right. We'll do a roll call vote. Michael Doherty, aye.
Marcus Phelps, aye.
Chuck Singer, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
Dave Spina, aye.
Jessica Thornton, aye.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good